Startup ecosystem, what the idea is that you have to learn how to pitch your idea clearly and concisely. And once you learn how to do that, then you can bring in all the stakeholders and you can get into programs that'll help you and train you on how to build it. But that first step is you have to design a business model that is desirable.
When I initially moved back to Pensacola, I had a meeting with Lloyd. Lloyd invited me for breakfast and I was telling him, man, I still have an idea for the entertainment industry. This is what I wanted to do. He was like, all right, I got Startup on the Blocks. So I need you to start coming to Startup on the Blocks and get a little more information on how to work through the tech ecosystem and take your idea and we'll get you where you need to go. My company is called The Know, is an app that is streamlining business for the entertainment industry. Yeah, so if you're a musician, what you would do is pretty much jump on the platform, you'll create a profile, but the way we created the profile is pretty much a cleaner way. So now if they want more information about you, you'll connect your social media platforms, your streaming platforms, and that way they can go directly to it. What we also have included is your calendar. So pretty much you can set your days, you can set your price for your days and automate your booking. So initially talking to Lloyd, my idea was all here, it was there, it was over here, it was over there. It was like, all right, Quinn, I get it. You got a lot that you want to do, but we need you to bring it in just a little bit and then work on your pitch, your story, and how you're going to bring it full circle to get people to understand what you're trying to create.
Most of the programs here wasn't inclusive. And so we said we'll focus on helping founders of color. We also start at the beginning of the thing, at the idea stage, whereas a lot of the programs you see here locally, they start after you're up and that's not very efficient unless if you don't have a lot of money, you can't recover from your mistakes. And the lean startup system, it actually helps you make mistakes faster before you spend a lot of money. You don't actually start building anything until you got customer buy-in.
There was a need for small businesses to bring brand awareness to their business. I see there's a lot of makers and bakers that they're making all of these goodies and these products, but they can't market it, they can't sell it at the same time, and there needs to be kind of like that middleman, that middle person to help bring economic growth to some of the small businesses in Pensacola. So Taste of Pensacola, I came up with that idea during the pandemic when I saw things at that time that Amazon couldn't fulfill. They didn't even have those products, but the local people in the community, they did. And so there was a ton of people coming out saying, hey, I make masks. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. All the local people here that are just as talented that can actually make those products. And so I wanted to kind of showcase who they were. So with Taste of Pensacola, our income streams, we have several of them. We have the corporate America, we do corporate gifting, just regular consumers, different Pensacola natives that don't live here that want to purchase our boxes, like a taste of weddings, distribution. So we also do bulk sales. So for a private airline, if they want some local snacks and goodies on their passenger flights, they will come to Taste of Pensacola and we will source their vendors here locally. And we'll give a small business owner an opportunity to have reoccurring monthly sales. I've always had a really big vision for Taste of Pensacola. I knew that it could go beyond just local. I know that maybe other communities could possibly use the same platform that I'm trying to build. And I always have these big visions, but I never know how to even get there. Where do I start? I know it's more than, there's a lot of technical things behind it. I know there's a lot of research, but that connection, I never had it until, thankfully, I met and was introduced to Startups on the Blocks and was able to just learn more about how to grow it in terms of data. Things I just never thought about, framework, words like traction. There's a lot of things that I just did not know about and language that I need to know in order to get funding for my business. There's just a lot that I didn't know.
I would go to the stores and look online. They didn't have a wide variety of natural hair products about 8 years ago. And the ones that they did have, the ingredients, it would say that they were all natural. And when I would research the ingredients, a lot of the ingredients were not natural. I make everything, my shampoo, conditioner, I have an oil that I make, and I have 2 different separate butters. Like I had some people who were completely bald and grew their hair. It's about giving women their confidence back in their hair. If I have this salon and then I have a second salon, and I have my products in about 5 beauty supply stores. So I need a manufacturer to keep up with the demand at this point. Startup on the Blocks has helped my business grow. Send me to different people. I'm able to do different pitch competitions to apply for grants in the community for small businesses. Lloyd's a really good person to connect with. He has a lot of resources here in the community that can help small businesses grow. If you have a product out there and you're trying to go big time, he's the person that you would want to meet with.
So it's really important to have some type of support because 9 times out of 10, most founders start out on their own. And to have somebody that has an idea of how the ecosystem works and is able to tap into other resources and bring back to the community, and that pretty much has encountered some of the roadblocks or going through the same roadblocks that we're currently going through and understands where you're at, your culture and how you respond to things, is a big help because you don't really have too many people that have access to what we have access to here in the community. And a lot of people believe that you have to leave and go to bigger cities to do the things that we're doing here. But I mean, it's one thing to have exposure, but you have to actually know it's here in the community in order to take advantage of the resources. So I get approached and I talk to friends all the time that wants to either start an idea or hear that I'm actually doing the app and wants to know more information about how are you doing it or what's the process, what's the path. I'm like, man, we have somebody here, Startup on the Blocks, Reshard. And Lloyd is here, he's a great resource to the community and to founders that's trying to learn the ecosystem. So join Startup on the Blocks.
Welcome. How are you there, Ms. Reshard? How you doing? Welcome to Startup on the Blocks.
Did you just call me Miss Reshard? Did you just act like I'm your mother instead of your wife? You just called me Miss
Yeah.
Reshard. How you doing, Mr. Reshard? How you doing, Mr.
Great. How are you? Yeah, so looks like we're having a little technical difficulties there with the lead-in video there. I'm not sure what was going on, but yeah, glad to have you here tonight. And thanks everybody for joining in. We're gonna kick off giving a little shout out to our sponsors and partners. And let's get this rolling here. All right. Yes, and so we offer a lot of programs, but we couldn't do it without our sponsors and partners. So these are some of our partner organizations that we partner with in order to bring the training to everybody. So giving a shout out to those folks, and then our sponsors and funders. These are some of our sponsors and funders, and we appreciate all the support that they do as well. And through that support, we're able to offer our Lean Stack program, where we teach founders the different milestones you have to go through in building your startup and stress testing your business idea or trying to scale your business idea. So hello, Miss Angela out there over there in Tallahassee. My social media birthday today. Yes, and then so
I got you. I put a piece of bread and a candle on there.
Okay.
Candle on there.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, and the Startup Science is one of our favorite programs because that teaches founders everything they need to know and how to answer all the questions that they might get asked in the startup world out there. Yeah, so and then our co-founder OS, we partner with Make Startups for that, and Patent Hacks, we partner with the Black Innovation Leaders of Florida for that. And so the Patent Act, so this is our newest thing. So this is kind of a good opportunity where you get access to learn all about trademarks and patents. And we have like a podcast thing that you can listen to learn there. We also have an AI agent that you can ask questions about that. And we're here every Thursday evening for you ask questions, and also on Saturdays from 1 to 3. So if you want to sign up to learn about trademarks or patents, follow that link, kukuainstitute.org, and look at the Get Started page. Yes, and so like a lot of you all out there have ideas. You have you may have existing businesses and you may want to try to scale them, or you want to get a new idea off the ground. So this is the platform. This is a process that we take you founders through to kind of help you get all those ideas out of your head and on paper. And so these little icons here are a one-page business plan. So you do a big idea canvas with the 9 areas, and then you break that up into the customer segments, the second column here, and then you stress test it for the desirability by doing a why now elevator pitch, and then you test it for viability, but with your pricing, which is this lower right-hand box, and then your metrics here. And that tells you if your idea is viable or not. And then the last stress test is you stress test for feasibility, and that's based on your cost, your solution, and your unfair advantage and channels that you're marketing through. So this is just a process that will allow you to understand and your idea, and so you can have confidence. And when you pitch it to folks, when you're filling out applications to get for pitch competitions, and there's several pitch competitions always going on. Are you trying to get in an accelerator program that gives you money, or are you trying to get some free perks from all these different corporations? That you have to be able to pitch your idea clearly and concisely. Yep, and so that's kind of it for the training. And so we got a great show lined up for you today, and I asked Robin to come on and share some history. So Robin, why don't you take a minute or two to introduce yourself?
You're not gonna tell them how fabulous I am and all of that?
Okay, so
you want me to say I was born in a log cabin in Arkansas, around the mountain, under the mountain, around the creek, by the creek.
Well,
Mom and dad, the youngest of 8 children.
So
I'm from farming folks and teachers and entrepreneurs and hucksters. You want me to tell them all that, or what? I'm not sure of what you want me to
yeah, just introduce yourself so the folks can get to know you a little bit.
Just asking. Hello, everybody. So excited to be here in the, what is this, the 4th year startup on the blocks? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. This is this August. We're in
It'll be the 5th year.
5th year. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
2 pieces of bread and a candlestick.
Yeah. So
Yeah. 5th year, 2020. So really happy to be here. My focus is African American history. I love telling stories about it. And so in honor of my grandmother, I always say that I tell stories about Black people, and most of them are true. There's a little imbibe in there, thanks to my dad. And so I like it. Most of the focus is on Belmont DeVillers, the local area that was the beacon of African American entrepreneurship 100 years ago, and is still recognized as such. There are other areas in Pensacola, so like Tallahassee, you had Frenchtown, Sweet Auburn Avenue in Atlanta, Harlem, Greenwood in Tulsa, made famous, unfortunately, by the Tulsa riots. The 9th Avenue area in Little Rock, where I'm from, Arkansas. So, and a lot of these Black business districts in the 19th century, in the 1800s and 1900s. So the 19th and 20th century, where concentrated Black folks lived, worked, and played, as they say. So that's my focus. But if you tell me a name, I'll tell you a good story. So.
Right, fantastic.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah, but so what got you into were you always a storyteller, like in high school, college, or what?
Oh no, I get it from a mama. Isn't that a song? Get it from a mama.
Okay.
What? I get it from a mama and my daddy. So country folks, and so we didn't have the signal couldn't always get over the mountain. So we were, storytelling was the entertainment, putting some records on the record player. We were the entertainment for company coming, dancing. And so I just, it just kind of I don't know, maybe osmosis things when you hear these stories often. And so sometimes my favorite word about my dad is fantastical, because these stories I heard, I thought they were just fantastical, not true, like he was making them up. And then when we started doing family reunions in I think in the mid 90s, we started doing family reunions. So then the stories began to be documented, coalesce. They were already documented, but coalesce. And so come to find out that 95% of them were true. There was a little imbibing in there from Daddy, but yeah, Mom and Dad love to talk about their parents and their grandparents, and so you just sat around hearing these stories. Of course, we were children, so you had to listen. You couldn't get in grown folks' business, but what we were listening to turned out to be so true. And then just seeing the community come together. I grew up in predominantly African American communities, rural, and so around the churches, I was the first in my school to go to all integrated, in my family to go to, my immediate siblings to go to all integrated schools. And so it just kind of comes at you, and you don't sometimes realize that it's getting in you until later. Then I tried to
Yeah.
figure out what I wanted to do with all of it.
Yeah. So what got you into digging up about history here in Pensacola?
I'm just nosy. I don't know, nosy, curious, inquisitive. No, just plain nosy. I'm trying to be serious, baby. Wait a minute now. Okay, just yeah, it's so much. I grew up in, again, country place, and so we had, then it was called Negro History Week. And so
Mm-hmm.
when others, I still remember this, when other students had to go to the library, it's like,
Yeah.
my parents had these books at home, and so I could research things at home, and their friends were these people that I saw in history books or in history on television or whatever. These were their friends, Daisy Bates and Ben Hooks, and all these folks. I remember being a teenager, and when I thought I was grown enough to ask my dad, where he'd been the weekend. This very simple, man, and he's like, "Oh, I was at the White House this weekend." I'm like, what? We country folks. What are you doing? But these circles that he moved in really afforded us these opportunities to meet all these different people. And so they just told the stories, but it wasn't like they were trying to be fantastical. They were just doing the work. So whether it was civil rights work or labor work or community work or education work, we saw our parents, friends, protesting something that was going on in school around, sometimes trying to resegregate schools after integration. And so yeah, it was just this kind of thing that got in me, I guess. I forgot your question.
Yeah, no, what got you into telling about the history of Pensacola there? You said being nosy, but why is it kind of good to uncover the local history?
Oh, that's a good question. You can tell me you're gonna ask me that one. Dang. Uh, it's our history. It's our shared history. Even if we don't acknowledge it, or even if we don't believe it, even if we don't know it, it is still our shared history. And it's like I have a friend who's an archaeologist, Tom. And so we were going to dig up this one place where they were building a house. And so I said, well, we need to make sure to dig it before they build a house. And he's like, no, we don't have to rush, because it's always there. So these stories are literally always just under the surface, under the dirt. Now we have to then be very active in going and uncover them. Some people want to keep them covered up. But so we have to be very active. So it's all of our history. You often hear Black history is American history. And so it is all of our history, and it does us a disservice when we don't know this shared history, or when we try to hold somebody down. If I try to hold somebody else's history down, that means that I'm putting this karma out to hold mine down. And I don't want anybody to hold my history down. I may not want to know all of your history, but I want you to be able to share it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. because all of it ain't, some cute history. It's everybody, we're humans, and so we all have these kind of foibles and all of that. And I want to know that, because that makes a good story. It humanizes our experiences.
Yeah. So like when with the startup founder best practices, we're trying to help entrepreneurs and startup founders learn the best practices for building a startup. And so I guess tonight we wanted to kind of look at how Black folks did it back in the late 1800s and stuff here locally. And so I think, like you said, it's a common theme, like in Tallahassee and Sweet Auburn and all these places like Black Wall Street. And so I think it would be good to kind of talk about some of that kind of stuff, so it can kind of inspire modern day us to kind of move forward with our endeavors and not think small, think big, and make some things happen.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's good to see, because you can be inspired, you can learn from their successes, you can learn from their errors, you can see what bears to be repeated, and you can be inspired by their. I'm going to tell you about, when we do the presentation, I'll tell you about some people that are in these associations. But they had these regular lives. So yeah, they were trying to do these amazing things. Didn't know that they were, making history. They were just doing the darn thing. They were just working, And so oftentimes, we make this prize of people who are first, or the only, or something like that. And so often we don't, even as historians and researchers, we don't know really. We're just trying to tell you the best that we know at that point. So my sweet spot is the later 18th century to the the later 19th century to the early 20th century. That's sort of my sweet spot. And so it really does revolve a lot around the time that's called Reconstruction. So after the Civil War and enslavement period, then when Black folks were trying to, the nation, but specifically for me, Black folks were trying to rebuild their lives. So in in the South, they're going from not every Black person was enslaved in the South, and so they're going from this period of national enslavement, because I think it was, one and all, but this period of where enslavement was allowed, to now you're considered in the vernacular freedman, a freed person. And so so you're moving. But even people who were free, folks of color, as they say, people of color, even those who are free still had to navigate this new territory, these new laws. And so even though there were these laws on the books, the legal part on the books, there were still these social norms that people had to overcome. And so these associations, these people coming together, really did, they had to work on the association, the legal part, the business part, but they also had to work on the social part, that cultural thing, and overcoming some of those barriers. And everyone wasn't for them either. So I know, in business, you think that they have a great idea and people are going to like this. And so, you go out, you take your product or service out, and you go, wait, well, why doesn't everybody like this? Well, that's nothing new. Everybody didn't necessarily like progress, or even understand progress. And so so these folks went through that same thing. So I hope that this encourages somebody as they're trying to launch their business or take their business to the next level, or think about their idea and how to implement their idea.
Gotcha. And so what are some of the ways that you bring this history to life? Give us some examples of some things you did over the past few years to kind of bring some of this history to life.
A whole bunch of talking, a whole bunch of talking, a whole bunch of talking, presentations like this. We share as part of a team, now an award-winning team, and actually about to put a book out called Writing the Past, that was based on a project with the New York Times. And so we're getting ready to we did that with the a local paper, Pensacola News Journal, which is a Gannett paper, and so we're moving that into book form. I've contributed to documentaries, historical documentaries, news articles with some national newspapers and magazines. I said books, two books. Really proud of the last two in the last couple of years that have been put out. So contributed research to that, and then right before the pandemic, we did the opera or a song cycle that would lead to an opera about a hospital, one of the early Black hospitals here in Pensacola, and the opera is going to be called Viola, who is the named nurse that started the hospital here in 1922. So just try to put it out in different ways that people can absorb. And I actually learned a new one tonight that I'm going to show. What do you call that? The flip book? I know it's old school, but I'm so excited that I finally learned some AI stuff. I don't know.
Okay.
AI. I'm learning how to spell it. So.
Okay. Yeah, but I think the first project we deal with there at the Kukua Institute was called Real Blocks.
Oh, the virtual reality. Yeah. Work with some university graduate students, 5 University of West Florida graduate students in public history. And so we took this real data, this genealogical data and census data, commercial data, because we use the city directories as well, and then use some maps, and then put it into a combined all of that, had a computer science, combine all that, and then make it into a virtual reality project. So you can actually put on the goggles and step back into around 1910. And so you can kind of see the people and the businesses, and walk down the street, literally walk down the street of Belmont de Villiers in 1910. Yep, forgot about that.
Yeah,
and a lot.
So,
I need a vacation.
Yeah,
Hint.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
yes. And the Charlie project, we took a lot of that history and created robotics curriculum around it as well.
Yeah, the humanoid robot. Yeah, so students and adults can learn about robotics through history. And so even if you're not a tech person, I am not, then you can still use some different, what are those things called? The icon things.
Yeah.
You can still use those to make the robot do things. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, and then so what are some of the things you're doing recently to bring some of the history to life? Like
What?
like what about I'm trying to think, what do you call that thing where Eric and Lloyd Jr. are singing and Sandy is singing?
Oh, yeah. So okay, I forgot about that too. So we're doing actually getting ready to do it again. We premiered it last year. It's a performance piece, music and narration piece, thanks to Mamie Webb Hickson. It very much inspired by her work that she does around literature. And so so this is about a true story about from a true story. I made it into a love story around the emancipation, a true story, a tragedy that happened here in Pensacola in the 1890s. And so going to an emancipation celebration. And so, but it's made into a love story. So we have Eric Dozier, Lloyd Reshard Jr., and Dr. Sandra Winborn to sing the principal roles with these characters, and it's based on early 1900s music, African American composers, and so I wrote the lyrics. We've written 4 songs in the production. I've written 7, but 4 songs in the production that are performed by them. So y'all stay tuned. We're getting ready to perform that again. So really excited about that. Y'all can say we saw it before it went to Broadway. I'm just saying. It may be Broadway downtown Tallahassee, but we're gonna be in Broadway somewhere. Just saying.
Gotcha. So there are a lot of ways you can bring this Black history to life from modern day. Folks can kind of help them learn about the history. So and so tonight we're going to talk a lot more about the entrepreneurship and the kind of stuff we had going on already. So any I guess like what challenges do you normally have when you're actually doing this local research, and kind of give us a feel for what you have to go through to kind of bring some of this stuff to life?
So so there are amazing digital resources that are used, that are constantly being updated. We're actually going to do a genealogy and storytelling workshop this weekend. But there are amazing resources that are digitized. So starting with some of the largest one, the Library of Congress, and then they have done what most people know, Ancestry. They've subcontracted with the Latter-day Saints out in Utah, and so they made a lot of this available. So it's really easy. You don't have to do going through the microfilm or microfiche and all of that files and things like that. For the most part, you still need to go to those repositories, but it does make it a whole lot easier. So probably the biggest challenge is researching women is probably the biggest challenge, because again, social norms, you would go, so and they wouldn't say, Robin Reshard, they would say Mrs. Lloyd Reshard or Mrs. L. Reshard. And so I'm really looking for your story, adding in MRS to it. And that's mostly in the South. Because of this project, I had a opportunity to expand my research. And so I was actually looking in California, and in California, that had not been the research I was doing. It had not been the norm for the research that I was doing. Like, I was able to find the women in there. So a little bit more progressive, and not saying that the South was deficient. I'm just saying it was different, and different is not deficient. It was just different. But for the South, it has been my experience to be challenged with finding women up until unless you're talking about teachers, sometimes they would say names in these professions, teachers, nurses, they would say names. But social things like that, if the one we're going to talk about, you'll see a picture of a man who had to do with one of the associations and his wife. And so she was a teacher, so they would say her name. But if it's a social situation, they would say, Mrs. R.H. Matthews. So they wouldn't say her first name, Ella. They would say Mrs. And so now if they were talking teaching, then they may say Ella Matthews. But in some cases, you do see that. So tracing women has been a challenge. You could do some amazing things, but social norms wasn't, so that it was talked about.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
That's
right.
one of the challenges. It's not the only one, but that's
So so folks, if you got some questions about, how you could go about researching your local history, just feel free to ask. And I think it's one of my takeaways from some of the research you've been doing. Like you're uncovering all these things that about our ancestors, and they had businesses, they had banks, and they all did all this stuff, and so I think we have to try to learn some of those lessons from them. So yeah. So if you're ready to show us what you got, we can.
Okay.
We'll do
Let me
that.
put my spectacles on here, and I'll hit present and share screen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we appreciate everybody joining tonight for this Black History Month addition to a startup founder best practices, and we ultimately want to just learn from the past. And yes, you're up and running.
Okay, you've got full screen.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to talk about, so thank you, Lord, for the opportunity. Thank you for the invitation.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about cooperative economics in the 19th century, specifically African American associations in Pensacola. I will delve into the 20th century a little bit, especially after one of the downturns. I think it's important to see that even when in the downturns, that people still made their way. So, and I'm going to talk about principally three, but I'll add in that last one: the Union Mercantile and Real Estate Association, the Drayman's Joint Stock Association, the People's Cooperative Building and Loan Association, which was the financial institution, the bank, the modern day credit union, and then the Crown Loan and Savings. So I'll talk about primarily the first three, and then I'll add in the fourth one. And so these were predominantly African associations of African American business men and women, especially with the Building and Loan Association. Again, I talked about it's challenging to track women. And so the beautiful thing is, as I do more work, I'm finding these unique ways to try and uncover some of that. So I'm getting better at it. So we'll overcome it. Well, the first one is the Union Mercantile and Real Estate Association, and this one was formed by a group of people. I'll share the officers with you in 1878. And as best we can tell, because they were registered with the state, I haven't found the association papers yet, but they were registered with the state up until 1936 when they dissolved. So 22 and 36, so 58 years. This was a real estate association, and they were a group of men and women who banded themselves together, banded their money together to buy and sell real estate. And so here is some examples from the newspaper, from the Pensacola Commercial and from the Pensacola News. The top one is 1885, where they are buying real estate from a W.L. Bell, 10 acres. 10 acres of land, and then in the lower one, they're selling 2 acres of, it looks like 2 acres perhaps of that same lot. Everything else lines up there. So they're actually selling 2 acres. So I haven't traced how much they bought it for, but you can see where they're selling 2 acres, $250. So 15 years later. And so they were, as you see on the other side there, they were dissolved in 1936. And there were 3 officers. I've been able to trace Lennie Watson was the president, and that may be Lennie, and it may have been Leonard. So I haven't been able to find him yet. Jasper Shanks, I'll talk about him. He was the secretary, and he was a drayman. A drayman is a modern day truck driver. So they would drive the old school wagons and things and deliver goods, and sometimes people, taxi people. And then Thomas Coleman, who was the treasurer, he was a stevedore, so he would unload products off of the ships, probably down at the bay. So I'm going to talk about Jasper Shanks, just to put I wish I had a picture of, but just to put a face kind of in your mind with it. So Jasper Shanks was born in 1847 in Alabama. And he, like I said, he was a drayman. He was married to a lady named Victoria, and they had at least 3 children, I found. And there may have been another son named Jasper or a nephew, so it gets a little confusing there. But at least they had 3 children, 2 of which I know named John and Mary, and they did have a daughter who died at 8 months old. And so he was also a city councilman in 1877, and that was during that Reconstruction period that we saw again all over the United States, and specifically in Pensacola. There were at least 15 city council men, all men, 15 city councilmen between 1869 and 1889, and that's listed in the book. I should have put it up here, didn't think about that, but that's listed in the book, Black Public Officials by Cantor. Can't remember his first name, but a great book, so you can see Black public officials in Florida. And so So here you see, and it's kind of want to give you a full idea of who he was. So he was a drayman, he was a city councilman, married, husband, father. Excuse me. He also appears on this first volunteer infantry muster form in 1870. I think this is a addition to like the Garfield Guards, which I'll show you, is a precursor to the National Guard. So even as they were trying to, this country was trying to rebuild, and you had these, I don't know if he was enslaved, so I do not want to say that Jasper Shanks was enslaved, but even as you had these people who were newly freed, and the country didn't necessarily love them back, so they're still trying to figure all this out, they were still trying to defend this country. And so I think that's really significant. So here is the muster sheet from 1870. It says enrollment of 1st Volunteer Infantry organized at Pensacola, July 14th, 1870 by S.T. Pons. That's Salvador Pons, who was the first Black mayor of Pensacola. And I think that's Thomas Harrod. And so we believe that most of these on this list are African American. And so down here at the bottom on the right is Jasper Shanks, and I've just kind of pulled his name out and enlarged that. And so this is, I don't know if Jasper Shanks is in this photo. This photo was taken sometime between 1881 and 1900 after Jasper Shanks died, and he died in 1892. But this is another all-volunteer group. These were the Garfield Guards. So I'm just putting it up there. I don't have a picture of Jasper Shanks, but just to give you an idea, again, of this association. So so that's the first one. That's the Union Mercantile and Real Estate Company. Again, these folks coming together to buy and sell real estate, pooling their resources together to do that. And so, and again, they were there from, I just forgot, from 1878 to 1936. And so the next one is the Drayman's Joint Stock Association. So I said draymen were the truck drivers, the taxi drivers. And so you have 3 people who came together. 2 of them appear to be brothers. And one, some of you in Pensacola may have heard of, particularly the one that I'll talk about. But the Drayman's Joint Stock Association came together in 1890. And they were there again till 1936, so for 46 years. They were there. And this is the notice, what year? This is the notice in September of, there it is, September of 1890, that James Harvey, Wade Harvey, his brother Wade Harvey, and J.T. Smith have associated themselves and become incorporated as the Drayman's Joint Stock Company of Pensacola. And so, it says here, I pulled this part out, the object of said corporation is to establish and operate a general merchandise store or stores for the benefit of stockholders. The capital stock of said corporation is fixed at $5,000 to be divided into 500 shares of $10 each to be paid for in cash upon issuing a stock. So here you have these 3 officers. My assumption is these are the 3 officers of the corporation coming together to operate a general store. And I did see, I think, where James Harvey had, I think that he had like maybe was selling fruit or something as well. So you think of a truck, you think of like we go down to the market on Saturdays and people pull up in their car. Lloyd his family talks about the rolling store where people would put goods and things on a car and go out to these rural areas and sell things. And so this was the Drayman's Joint Stock Company. And so one of them, Wade Harvey, is noted as, if not the first business owner, as an undertaker, African-American business owner, African-American undertaker. There may have been others, but he's noted here as the first one. And here is an ad in the Pensacola newspaper. This is from 1893. And so it says undertakers and funeral directors, W.H. Harvey on 6 South Palafox Street. So just below what would have been Garden Street in that first block. So and this is on that main thoroughfare. Those of you who are out of town, this was the main north-south highway, a road, and business road there. And so Wade Harvey was he was born in 1857 and he died in 1910. And he was a real estate investor. You see, he was a funeral company owner, and a drayman. So again, they came together to him and his brother and J.T. Smith. They came together to be able to run this general store, and and then buy and sell things as well, and invite people in. So this they invited you for $10 each that you could buy into this company, into their stock company, and try to get a good return on your money. And so the next one, the one that this just always brings me joy, is the People's Cooperative Building and Loan Association. And this one is really noted as this is the first at this time, this is the first known Black bank in Pensacola. So Black owned bank in Pensacola. So they came together in 1891, and they were there. They were there at least until 1897, and I have that / 1974 because on the books of Florida, the company wasn't dissolved until 1974. That's a huge, that's what, at least 7-8 decades in there. So almost 80 years in there. And I don't know why. My best speculation, I'm really speculating here. My best speculation is that, there may have been people who, and you'll see, still owed them money. So we're still, paying things. I don't know. That's part of my being nosy. I got to find out why. And so they came together again in 1891, and this is their association book that was registered with both the state of Florida and with the federal government as a financial institution. And they say, I'll read this part here, and then I'll show you the book in full after I talk about Reuben Matthews, the secretary. It says the object of the association shall be to give its members an opportunity to acquire in an easy manner by weekly or monthly installments or assessments a capital for the purchase of building of a home or other property, to engage in business or invest their savings in a secure manner at a good interest, also to encourage and foster the idea of economy as a means of financial strength. If that ain't a bank, y'all, I don't know what is. So these building and loan associations, and we think of savings and loan associations, the same thing. These were precursors to modern day credit unions. And so I don't know when the name credit union came into fashion, but these were the precursors. You had to be registered, you had to issue shares, you had to have meetings the same way that a bank does today. And so they issued stock. Here is an example of one of theirs. This is a real stock that they issued. This was issued 1891. It was transferred to John Sunday. A lot of people in Pensacola know that name. He was a real estate investor, as well, business owner, construction company owner, developer, African American, and so this stock was transferred to him. And so they issued, again, this was a going concern, and you can see right up there in bold letters, 1891. And this is a example of their pass book that they had. So you can see here, September 5th, 1891, you had to pay 50 cents to, remember this is $1891, 50 cents to join the association, to join the credit union, just like you do today. And then every week you had to pay 25 cents. So in $1891, 25 cents. And so you had all these people coming together, and then they would loan that money out. They would invest that money, they would loan that money out so people could buy real estate or buy a business, whatever they wanted to do. And they had to pay that money off in 6 years. That's in their, you'll see a copy of it here, that's in their bylaws. And so here you see that R.H. Matthews is signing. I'm so glad that just uncovered some things about him, because he ends up dying the next year in 1892. He ends up dying. But before that, though, we have this beautiful picture. I'm so excited. His family has shared this with me. This beautiful picture of him. This is R.H. Matthews on the left here, and I'll tell you about this little book here, because he was written about. He was a Hampton University graduate. I think originally from Georgia, and he was a Hampton teacher and a Hampton University graduate, and did some other teaching. He was involved in politics, and then I think I have Georgia right, but then he ended up coming to Pensacola, and this is his family. This is his wife Ella, and five of his six children. Their daughter passed when she was a student at FAMU. I think she was about 17 or 18 years old, and she was stricken, I think, with like the flu, one of those communicable diseases that was really popular, unfortunately, at the time, like the flu or tuberculosis or something like that. I can't remember, but she was at FAMU when that happened. And so this is a beautiful picture of this is Reuben Matthews, R.H. Matthews, and then his family here. It's handsome family. This is absolutely beautiful. I'm so grateful to the Matthews family for sharing this with me. Just got this in the last few days. And so he was, again, very influential. Yeah, Columbus, Georgia. Reuben Hurd Matthews, and so this is his bio, and this is from Hampton University, their annual book in 1893. So this dude was so influential that they actually wrote about him, and so it's talking about his health failing after he was teaching, and so he went to Pensacola, where he was head of the colored public school until 1882. He resigned, went into the mercantile business, was clerk at the post office till he lost his position in 1885. And for Florida, 1885 was the Florida Constitution, which really tried to politically wiped out a lot of gains that African Americans had made, put it into law. It's a dastardly constitution. And so anyway, so he was there. Talks about his work in the community, his church work, his school work, his lots, and he is married and has 5 children. So by then his daughter is passed, owns a house and a lot in Columbus, Georgia, and 2 lots and 3 houses in Pensacola worth about $3,000. And he says, my aim is to do all in my power for the moral and intellectual advancement of my people, and to teach them how to economize and accumulate property as one of the great factors in solving the Negro question. Hard work, honesty, and frugality are the means by which we are to rise. And so this is him in 1890. This is him saying this, that they had done this in 1893. And he had passed the year before, so he didn't even live to see this being printed, unfortunately, but his family did. And so that's a beautiful thing. So I want to share I'll just let this run, but this is the actual book that we've digitized. So I'll let this run here.
Is that what was filed at the state? Oh, federal.
This, yes, this is what was filed at the state and with the federal government. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and it's more. It's that pass. There's a pass book attached to the back. I didn't include that, but yeah, yeah. That it's just so it's exciting to have that, and to have it last for this long. So it's really exciting to have that, to see the written plan for their work. So in that, they had the initiation fee, they had, the meetings, how you run the meetings, they had the bylaws, election of officers, they had the agenda for the meeting. That was that last page. So yeah, so just it's just such a beautiful, that just brings me excitement.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, before you go on, you mentioned 1885 Florida Constitution. What was so bad about that?
Yeah, it stripped away a lot of gains, particularly that. So Reconstruction was it's a couple of years after the end of the Civil War, 1865. So probably 1869 to for about 10 years to about 1879. So about almost a decade period where these different agencies were stood up to help these so-called newly freed slaves and these new Americans, as that's up for debate, but these new Americans, and to help. So it was a Bureau of Land, Education, and I'm forgetting the third one. To help the new African Americans, but also to help white folks get their land returned to them in the case of where military would come in and uh, uh, you know take an area, take the land, and use the land in the house for military situation. And so you had that period, and so you remember I said that there were like 15. There were some other elected officials as well, postal clerks, appointments, elected officials, Black Mayor Salvador Pons, commissioners, in all these different public areas. And so all of these during this period, Black folks made all of these amazing gains. I mean, they put the work in. It was nothing that was given, like we're going to give you something. They put this work in, and people banded together to make this thing work. Well, these gains were made, but then there was what was called the Great Compromise. I think it was Rutherford B. Hayes was the United States president, and so he made this compromise with the South, and the South was saying, "Listen, we need to get back to being South, being the South, and getting back to our old ways, And so they wanted to put Black folks in their proverbial place, and so the Florida really stripped the Constitution, including voting rights. I think it was I think that's when the poll tax was implemented. So we had the poll tax from then or around then to the 1930s to really force people to to not only hit them in the pocket in order to make your way, but also to sort of to dissuade you from running from office, to dissuade you from these social gains and things like that. The call for segregation. So this is when we see in 1896 in Louisiana, you see the Plessy versus Ferguson, where whose name is Omar Plessy, went up against the judge Ferguson to say that the streetcar, that we pay our money, we should be able to sit wherever we want to. There should not be this segregated public transportation, and so that ripples over to Pensacola, and so you have all of these different things, and I'll show you some more where there were calls for segregated housing. So you have like these Black folks made these gains after the Civil War, and the Declaration is for you, the Constitution is for you, but there's here comes this big asterisk and go, but you made too many gains. This is Robin saying this. You made too many gains. We got to put you back in your in your place. And so it was a huge backlash against the progress. Even as you see, these organizations are still making their way, and some of them did that in part because they continued to band together, even under some, again, dastardly circumstances.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. And so, so I just mentioned about the Plessy versus Ferguson again from the 1896 decision, the Supreme Court decision. It actually made its way to Pensacola just a few years later. In 1905, there was a call for segregated streetcars, and here you see from the Pensacola Daily News, or Pensacola News, as it was called. White and black races are now compelled to sit separately in the Pensacola streetcar. So um, it wasn't, it didn't make its way into the state law. And so because it didn't make its way into the state law, it was voted down. Then the Chamber of Commerce, Pensacola Chamber of Commerce, actually voted to make it a city ordinance. And so they pushed to make it a city ordinance, and they won. And there was a fight here. We wrote a story about London Croom, Reverend L.B. Croom, African-American minister who challenged the law. He was quickly jailed, and so they ended up losing. But they fought this they fought this law. And then here, so this is our building downtown. This is our building that we have our institute in. And so as they're building our building, you know, and this was for a Greek church. It says, notice to contractors, all white contractors desiring to bid on the construction of the Greek church for the Anagenesis, if I'm pronouncing that right, Greek Association, can see the plans and specific specifications at Nick Apostles restaurant. So here, even you see, and Greeks were considered people of color. Even you can see that there is that they're joining the bandwagon for this push to segregate even work. So you can really see why there was a need for people to come together. But here is this very public call for only white contractors to do it. And then, and so that was 1910. So then in 1911, there's his call in the, again, in the Pensacola paper for southern cities would segregate the races. And this is in the Pensacola News. The same problem is now before the cities of all the southern states, as well as the many cities in northern states. It's a problem in Pensacola. Numerous blocks all over the city are depreciated in value because of the fact that some Negro residents are there. And so here is this now call. So they're doing it. So they say other blocks are held down in value because of the possibility of Negro residents in the future. If a color line were established, it would eliminate friction between the races and give us stability to resident district values. The subject is at least worth looking into. So here's this very public call to now have segregated neighborhoods. And so, so you know, people say, well, you know, people just live where they want to live. Well, when you have this what they call it, de facto, these de facto laws and customs, then you know, de jure and de facto. So one of is a law, one of is well, that's just as a matter of fact. Then you know, you can see why people really did have to come together when you have you know, a mass of people pushing against you. You can see why it was necessary for people to come together. But then you had, you know, there was these beacons of light. So you had the Florida Sentinel, which came to Pensacola in 1894, and this is right downtown on Chase Street. So this gorgeous two-story building right downtown at Balin and Chase Street. And so this was a newspaper, and in the newspaper, you know, so you have all these these masses of people pushing against you, but here you have Matthew Louis, which is up here on the left, saying, you know, listen, this is the 1904 paper. He's showing the you know, the spirit of the Black community, and so here he's showing the different residences of like Isaac Purcell or George Green. Isaac Purcell was the attorney. George Green was a furniture dealer. He had a furniture company. Dr. Smith, John Sunday, in his, not the best picture, but he had that two-story house right on Rue Street there, Matthew Louis. And so they were still trying to, you know, show and encourage people for this economy. And I'll get ready to end here because I'm running out of time here. In 1914, the Colored Citizen, so 1913, he takes his paper and goes over to either Jacksonville or Tampa. And so some of his former workers start the Colored Citizen, and they say, this is the first issue, 1914. They say, do you know that many of these families are living in rented houses who are well able to buy their own homes and would do so if the proposition was put to them through the proper medium? And so they're talking about that the Black folks were sending their money elsewhere instead of spending it locally because they weren't welcome in these different facilities. So they're saying that, people are living in rented houses who are well able to buy, but because you won't sell to them, this is going on. So there was this pushback on that, and really putting this back in people's faces. But then there were like George Clutter was white, and he was saying colored people own your own home. And so there were people who were still taking advantage of this. This is I forget when this ad was. I think this was 1911. I think this is an ad from 1911. So there were still people, who were still trying to, give people a fair shake, like George Clutter here. And so I'll end with this really quick. So Crown Loan and Savings Association was done by DJ Cunningham, Daniel Cunningham, who with his wife, we don't have a picture of his wife, but with his wife, Florence, who's a school teacher, they had done a lot of real estate investing, and she died in 1911. And then, so when, I missed something here. She died in 1911. I did something there. Okay, so she died in 1911, and so he starts the Crown Loan. I think I took the slide out unknowingly, but he starts Crown Loan and Savings Association in 1912, and it was on the books until the 70s as well. So this way, and incidentally, after Reuben Matthews died, and Reuben Matthews was associated with People's Cooperative Building and Loan Association, and he died in 1892. When DJ Cunningham's wife died in 1911, DJ Cunningham marries Reuben Matthews' wife, Ella. But that's a soap opera that I'll tell you about later. Okay. Okay. So that was it. This was an ad where they were Watts was, I think this was W.A. Watts, I don't know who he was, but this was out at Lincoln Park, and told them Negroes who had accumulated considerable wealth on the farm. So they were really encouraging people to buy property and to farm as a method of economic independence. So okay, so that's it.
Fantastic. Yeah. So the based on what you learned there, so what's kind of your takeaway for us today and entrepreneurs today, and what would you like to share based on what you learned from all this?
Oh, we are stronger together. I'm sure that's probably a political ad, paid for by Robin Reshard, but we are definitely stronger together. And even when people are pushing against you, there are more people who are pulling for you. But the beautiful thing is banding together, coming up as they did with a plan. And sometimes that plan runs awry, but at least you have a plan. You have we're going to start here, and you're going to try and get there. And so you have a plan, but there are others around you. And I think the other thing, Lloyd, is that not everybody that's a part of your plan are going to agree with you. And so, take in these different perspectives. I often say that I do this research, and probably some of these people wouldn't even let me in their house, so they wouldn't even have me over for tea. But their story is worth repeating. So you're going to have people around you who don't agree with your point of view, but they're trying to get to the same place. So they're trying to get to financial they're trying to get to wealth. They're trying to get to financial independence. They're trying to get to real estate investment. They're trying to start a business. They're trying to sell a business. DJ Cunningham, after his wife died, he ended up selling his grocery store and really heavily investing in real estate and with that Crown Loan and Savings. And so, and he did another association called the Afro-American Men's Business League. And so he did that like in the 1890s. I didn't talk about that, but he did that. There was the National Negro Business League that he was a part of. He was on the executive committee. He was a part of, and Matthew Louis was a part of with Booker T. Washington. And they met in Boston in 1900. And so that's how we get the National Negro Publishers. We get the I think the medical associations. We had the Pensacola Academy of Medical and Dental, medical pharmacy and dental. I mean, you had all these different associations nationally that came out of a lot of that. So, just find a way to come together. I think that's the thing. So even when things look bleak, we got a lot of political things going on in the country now, and so people are discouraged because of what's going on. Use these to find the encouragement that when things are not going the best, that you can still find people who with good intentions to come together and do it. We have seen this before. I mean, if you think of the 1885 Florida Constitution, if you think of the streetcars, say the segregation and all that, we have seen this in history before. And so, just be encouraged that you can do it. Your foreparents did this, even if you didn't know them. You can do it. Yeah, I'll get off my soapbox.
Oh yeah, all of this history, and I think we're better off learning about it, and that way we can understand. And so when we don't know our history, I think it puts us in a bad position not to understand what's going on now in the United States. So
yeah, I see. Is that Vercel? Vercel
yeah.
is on here. Who has a hey Vercel, who has he has a cemetery business, and there is growth. There's a lot of I talked about Wade Harvey. There's a lot of growth in that, and so we see when Wade Harvey died in 1910. Then Richard Morris took over his business, and he died in like December 1910. In 1911, Richard Morris takes over, and so that's how we get Morris Funeral Home. And so there is, these things happen, natural occurrences. Somebody dies, but then you have somebody who steps in to continue, who what is the thing, find a need and fill it. So they advertised 1913. David Hawkins is mad at me now because I said, David, y'all actually started 3 years before you say you started. so there, there's opportunities in that. I think that's the encouraging thing.
Yeah.
Opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah. So the good news is there is a bunch of entrepreneurs in our ancestry, and they did great things, and so they were making progress, and then the kind of rules sort of changed to kind of hold them back, and so it sounds like we're going through the same thing right now, but just we need to persevere and keep moving forward.
And I think like Reuben Matthews, or not Reuben Matthews, Jasper. Was it Jasper Shanks? So he no. So Wade Harvey. I'm sorry, I got a lot of them in my head. Wade Harvey. He was a funeral home owner, funeral director, licensed funeral director. He was he did real estate investor. He was a drayman. So this idea of making these different streams of income too. So if you're going to drive, it for me, looking at it from a historical point, it's natural that if you're going to own a funeral home, that you have a chauffeur's license, or that you have the ability to drive people, dead or alive, that you have the ability to drive people, so you can make money either way. And so so these different streams of income that you can do. You don't have to hold yourself to only one thing.
All righty, fantastic. Thanks for coming on and helping us kick off Black History Month and with these lessons of the past, so we can use them today to move forward in the future. We appreciate everybody out there watching, and we'll see you all next Thursday. And looking forward to have a great weekend and a great upcoming week. See y'all next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Reshard.
Thank you, Mr.
Bye, y'all.
Here's a detailed breakdown of our Black Founders Program achievements and components. Program Reach and Impact, Global Reach, supporting over 500 founders worldwide, focusing on Black founders who often encounter systemic barriers in the startup ecosystem. Training in cohorts, delivered structured, hands-on training over the past 2 years. 9 30-day business model design cohorts, guided founders through designing scalable business models using the Lean Stack platform. 3 90-day launch programs, supported startups in validating demand, launching solutions, and refining their offerings. Our first Black Founders Innovation Summit attracted 92 in-person attendees and 182 registrants. Included networking events, speaker presentations, and panel discussions to provide diverse perspectives and practical insights. Training platforms used. Lean Stack, focused on scalable business model design and launch, with practical tools for customer discovery and validation. Startup Science provides education tailored to each phase of the startup lifecycle. Co-Founder OS measures entrepreneurial skills, offers certifications, and provides frameworks for building confidence in navigation the startup ecosystem. Patent Hacks trains founders on intellectual property, including patents and trademarks, to protect and leverage their innovations. Key goals and focus areas. Knowledge and resource bridging helps founders acquire critical startup knowledge, connections, and opportunities to secure funding and resources. Scalable Solutions emphasizes building sustainable, scalable business models to ensure long-term success. Diversity and Inclusion supports Black founders by providing a space where their unique challenges and perspectives are addressed. Event highlights: over 200 consecutive weekly startup founder best practices events since October 2020. These provide ongoing support, practical insights, and networking opportunities for founders. 10 demo days, which serve as accountability milestones where founders pitch present progress, e.g. the 3P progress report, persevere, pivot, or pause. Focus on wealth creation in emerging industries, encouraging Black founders to participate in opportunities like AI and other tech innovations. The Black Founders Program reflects our strong commitment to equipping Black entrepreneurs with the tools, knowledge, and ecosystem connections they need to succeed.